Well, I really wanted to get this video done before the coffee wore off, but this is now the fourth time I've shot the video, so I think the coffee is, kind of gone. We'll do it anyway, and we'll do it well. All right. Iowa State is coming to Morgantown Saturday night. Has Jaheem Joseph put his finger on part of the trouble with the West Virginia pass defense? And if he's right, does that fix the pass defense? Does the Iowa State offensive line have a weakness that we can exploit? I think those are a couple of the questions. There's more, and I'll get to all of them and try my best to make them interesting. And before I do all of that, I will say yet again, this is WVU Football Going Deep. I am Forrest Poston, and I would sincerely appreciate it if you make comments, click the thumbs up button, click the notification bell, tell your friends, click to share, and subscribe. I got to get up to 500 subscribers, and I got to get there in a hurry. And I am definitely going to need your help to do it. So if you like something about what I'm doing, please help me out. All right, going to start with the defensive side of things for West Virginia and Jaheem Joseph's press conference. Now, after the Pitt game, the defensive players had a players-only, no coaches meeting. Didn't get talked about a lot immediately, getting a fair amount of attention this week. Multiple players have mentioned it. And, with what Joseph said, it was fairly straightforward and it wasn't about accusations. It was about responsibility. And the players pretty much just agreed with each other that they had to do better. And that part of that meant practicing every day like it was a game. Just knuckling down, doing more. And obviously a game like that can either tear a team apart, bring a team together. Seems like it's bringing the team together. That old question of how do you face adversity? So that is potential good news. And, we may have seen some of the results in both the Kansas and Oklahoma State game where the defense did get better as time went on. Starting especially with the end of the Kansas game. But the other thing Joseph said that really caught my attention and which I haven't seen mention of, he was talking about two aspects of when he first came to West Virginia. Now, the first one, just the usual stuff. He came, the players and the coaches, staff, everybody made him feel welcome. It was a very good experience. But there's a difference between starting to become friends with people and getting to really know people. And on the field, that's the difference in whether or not you just have a trust that starts in your gut. You're not choosing whether or not to trust somebody, you just trust them. And it's almost impossible for that to be there immediately. And Joseph said one of the things is that now it's just not even something he thinks about. He trusts his teammates to do their 1/11th. And if it's in the back of your mind that you're wondering, will they or won't they, even if it's just a subconscious thing, are you going to have to try to cover for a mistake? You end up making a mistake because you're wondering about them instead of doing your 1/11th. Now the trust is there, it's natural, it's down in the gut, can play a lot more freely in that respect. Something else, along similar lines, and I mean, I had not really put it into these terms. I thought about this kind of stuff, obviously been thinking about it a lot this season because we've had problems. And he said, coming from Northwestern after 4 years or 5, whatever it was, in that program, there was simply a problem with muscle memory. This is a known thing. You learn something fully. It's not just in your head, it's in your body, it's in your muscles, it's part of who you are. And you can change that in your head, but it takes time, and sometimes, more time for some people than others, for it to just work all the way through the system, down into the muscles, so that you are not, head going one way, body going another. You're not forcing your body to do something that's a little bit different from what it was. I mean, it doesn't have to be a massive difference in scheme. Just little things or big things. And, you're not as athletic, you're not as smooth, you're not as quick, you're not as sure, you're not as confident. And it makes a difference. And he said, when he got here, that was one of the hardest things. Now, we had 6 new players in the defensive backfield, transfers. Of those, Hollis, Joseph, Tarnu, Fagan, and Garnes had all been at their previous school for at least 4 years, I think. And that means, at least 3 or 4. Muscle memory, potential issue for each and every one of those guys. I mean, even Crandall, to a lesser degree, he was only at Colorado State for a year. But Tarnu and Fagan came in relatively late. The other guys got here earlier, had more time to build that trust factor, to work on muscle memory. Not just learning the system, but, embodying the system. We talk about, becoming a mountaineer, but in some respects, they had to become a mountaineer in a physical sense. Have they achieved that? Don't know. Joseph seems to think he has. Maybe we were seeing some signs that the other guys have. If they have, how big a difference does it make? Not sure. On top of that, the coaches doing their share. Joseph said, hey, coaches can only do so much. Players got to do their part. Coaches got to do their part. Yeah. And the coaches have been working on adapting schemes. And that includes, now that they do know these players, adapting schemes for what those guys do best versus what they aren't as good at. And of course, that's what you're trying to avoid. So there will be change. There have been changes in scheme. Of course, we were dropping 8 a lot of the time against Oklahoma State. Against Kansas as well too, and dropping the linebackers a little farther. I don't think we can go with this drop 8, rush 3 all that often from here on out. So there will be some other schematic changes, but maybe, just maybe, the defensive backfield is going to be what we hoped. Will it fall completely into place this game? Don't know. Man, I'm saying don't know a lot. I am hopeful. I do believe we will see progress. But how much, how fast, that's unclear. Of course, that's also part of what makes it fun to watch. I mean, if you just know you're going to crush the other team, it's exciting in its own way, but anticipation and uncertainty do kind of get the adrenals going, don't they? All right. Also looking from the perspective of the West Virginia defense. Now looking at PFF numbers, so I don't have film. I haven't studied Iowa State game by game. But looking especially at the Baylor game, their right guard has some issues with pass blocking. Their center looks to have big issues with pass blocking, at least in that game. Don't know if there was something particular about what Baylor was doing or just a bad game for a player. But Mulba, Russell, and Gabriel have all been getting pressure up the middle. If that is a weakness for Iowa State, West Virginia should be in position to exploit it. And looking at Beck's numbers, when he's not under pressure, he completes 70% of his passes. And we're not talking just the 5-yard passes. His average depth of target is over 12 yards, I think. So I mean, he's pushing things downfield a bit. But when he's under pressure, and depending on whether it is a straight drop back or play action. I told you the caffeine was wearing off. His completion rate drops anywhere from 50 to 40 to 50 or 40%. That's a pretty big drop. So if you can get pressure on him, it's effective. And it looks like we should be able to get pressure up the middle. Martin and Jackson off the edge. I mean, their tackles seem to be very good at pass blocking, or at least good. Have they faced somebody as quick as Jackson? Well, there aren't that many as quick as Jackson. So we'll see about that. But the issue on the edge isn't rush as much as it has been containment. If we get pressure up the middle, can we contain Becht? Now, we actually did not have good containment against Oklahoma State. Bowman got outside quite a bit, but there was nobody open because the backs were doing their 111th. I don't know if we can count on that every game. So we need good coverage, yes, but we have to contain when we get pressure. But, I mean, I see a definite potential for the defense to give Iowa State trouble, big trouble. Flipping it to the offense for West Virginia. Iowa State has given up yardage on the ground against some of the teams they've played. Not all of them. Now in conference play, they've gone against Houston and Baylor. Neither of whom was really expected to be good. You can argue, Kansas and Oklahoma State have not played up to what was expected of them, but the talent is there. And Oklahoma State seems to have a morale issue or something. I mean, because they did not have a lot of heart against West Virginia. But if Donaldson and White can maintain the edge they had, because, they ran hard and smart. And of course, the offensive line and the receivers blocked. If we get the repeat of that, we could be looking at over 200 yards on the ground. Could we be looking at over 300 again? Doesn't happen very often, but it is not out of the question. Now, Iowa State has a good defensive coordinator. He's going to come in with a game plan to deal with Donaldson and White and Green. But who executes? Question with Green, two of them actually. One, has he found his natural balance so that he knows, when to stay in the pocket, when to roll out, when to run? It is coming much more smoothly and naturally to him. He's good at being a pocket passer when his footwork is good. He just can't stay there longer than he should, which he was doing some early. He seems to be back to, making good decisions faster. And that has brought good results. But what he hasn't done yet, and it's a bit of a surprise, he hasn't found his deep ball. We know he can throw a good one. He's throwing short and intermediate passes very well. Intermediate middle is his lifeblood this season. A spot people didn't think he could throw to. Deep middle, very good. The edges, deep edge, have been outside of the numbers. That's his problem. He's been throwing good-looking balls most of the time well over the head of the receiver. Every now and then short, but mostly he's just throwing long. That should come together at any time. It's one of those learning things. You improve one thing, you lose what you were good at, and eventually you manage to synthesize it all, and you're ahead of where you ever were before. When? Don't know. I'm hoping it's this game because Clement and Ray especially they've been getting open. And they've been getting open deep. They've been getting 2 and 3 steps against these corners. And this is against guys who are supposed to be among the best in the country, at least in the conference, a couple of, potential draft choices. And, Clement and Ray are just beating the crap out of them. Green doesn't always find them, and he hasn't always hit them. But they're getting open. And Taylor is getting open, seems to be more often later in the game. I don't think it's because they're not looking for Taylor. I think it's because Clement and Ray are open. And then, when the defense tries to pay more attention to them, you shift over to Taylor, Gallagher. That's one reason I suspect we're seeing them get their catches later in the game. Again, what will the defensive coordinator do? Will he make sure Clement and Ray are covered? That's okay. Then Taylor and Gallagher should be open. And I'm not sure if they will be able to get good pressure on Green. Again, I haven't studied Iowa State, but if Green does have time, he's going to get the job done. But one thing, the offense has not been able to get going. We've got Gallagher and Farmer, and these are guys that you try to get them the ball, you try to get the, in space, on the move, but things like the jet sweep haven't been working. And I don't know why. I don't know if other teams are somehow able to spot it when it comes. Is the blocking not good enough? But, some people say, well, stop running it. And I, say, well, run it better. I do think we need to be able to get some of that going. Running something like, when you bring these guys in motion, but you can never pop a sweep or a reverse, something like that, for big yardage, teams don't worry about it. We have to be able to break some of those just to keep defenses confused and off balance. I haven't done it yet. I'm sure they will keep trying and look for ways to improve it. But that is going to be one of my questions. Can they pop Gallagher or Farmer loose on a run? Of course, this year it was, can Gallagher get downfield on passes? Yes, we've seen that. Can we get the guys going on the run? I don't know if Farmer is ready to be going down, field for the passes. We haven't really done much of that with him, if at all. He gets a run from time to time. But I want to see that pop. Anyway, we're coming in. Iowa State ranked 11th. West Virginia unranked, or outside of the 20 top 25, moved up significantly last week. It looks like a big mismatch in terms of rankings. If you look at, numbers, they're very similar, but there's just not enough to make it clear yet this season. And who is going to fix their weaknesses? I say the center hasn't been pass blocking well. Well, is this the week he fixes that? But we will have to wait and see. Okay, I will be doing a live post-game show, a late live post-game show when the game is over, as soon as I can get online, depending on the computer cooperating. I hope you'll join me there. I may manage to do another video between now and then. We'll have to wait and see. If you have not watched some of the earlier videos, please go back and do some binge watching. And other than that, I'll talk to you guys later. So long.